İyi günler. Benim adım Hüseyin Avnişan. Bugün 19 Haziran 2025. Koster Armatörleri ve İşletmecileri Derneği'nin hazırlamış olduğu seminere hepiniz hoş geldiniz. Bugün Sayın Mr. Britton bizimle birlikte. They are all welcome to our Koster Academy sector education interview, which we held under the roof of the Koster Ship Owners and Owner Associations. Our guest today is Mr. Britton. He is trader. His company name is Third Grade. Welcome, Mr. Britton. How are you? Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for arranging the event. It's nice to be sitting with you, Hüseyin, today.
Thank you very much. Değerli katılımcılar, bugün konumuz EU ETS nedir? Nasıl bir MOA hesabı açılabilir? Nasıl bir karbon kredisi satın alınabilir? Bu ödediğimiz paralar nereye gidiyor? Bugün bunların hepsini konuğumuzla birlikte öğreneceğiz. Our topics is today is EU ETS. What is EU ETS? How to open MOA account? How to buy carbon credits? Where does this money go? So today we will learn all of this. First of all, welcome to our seminar, webinar, Mr. Britton. Let's go to know you, please, who you are, and please advise about you.
Of course. Would you like me to start the presentation slides?
No, first you can say
Okay.
your company name and your details, and we know who you are. Then you can start your presentations.
Perfect. Good afternoon, everybody. It's lovely to see such a good turnout today, and it's great to be here with Koster to speak to you about the EU ETS and Fuel EU. My name is Breton Day. I'm British, as you can probably tell by my accent. It's not very difficult to hide. I sit actually in Milan, in Italy, and I'm a Fuel EU and an EU ETS trader here at Targrey. I work mainly in the shipping industry for the EU ETS, covering Italy, Greece, and Turkey for their compliance, and speaking to lots of you also about Fuel EU, as that's a new compliance deadline that we will have next year as well. So I'm really looking forward to discussing more with you in person about the questions you may have, all the way through, like Hussein said, from creating the MOHAR account to doing the procurement of EUAs and discussing the start of Fuel EU as well. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Katılımcımız bugün gerçekten güzel bir sunum hazırladı. Ben daha evvel detaylarına baktım. Bunları merakla sunumlarını yapmak için kendisini bekliyoruz. Our anticipate prepared a very nice presentation for us. We are eagerly waiting for him to make his presentation. Okay, Mr. Britton, please, you may start your presentation. Thank you.
I appreciate it, and I hope you can all see the screen. So welcome again from my side to the presentation. Today's presentation will be on navigating the EU emissions trading system, which will be the deadline for the first time on September the 30th this year, in just 3 months' time, and also on Fuel EU Maritime, which is the other major European environmental legislation set out for shipping companies entering into EU waters, with their deadline being in June next year for compliance. So without further ado, I will get started. So today's presentation will be about introducing myself and my company, and then we'll start from the very start, discussing about what the EU ETS is, what it's trying to do, and then we will discuss how this affects the shipping industry and how we get you from point one, which is creating your MOHAR account, all the way through to developing your procurement strategy. And then we will touch base on the Fuel EU compliance scheme as well at the end, before opening up for questions from your side. So we've introduced myself. It's not the most glamorous picture. I do apologize. But to speak more about my company, we're operating across the world, but we are headquartered in Canada, in Montreal. And at heart, we're a sustainable commodities trading company. What that means is that we have 8 business divisions, and we operate from our office in Montreal, in Rotterdam, in Geneva, Delhi, and Dubai. And we trade biofuels from our offices in Europe and in North America, mainly into the road transport sector, but also into the maritime sector, which helps, of course, with both the EU ETS and Fuel EU compliance. And we also trade different commodities, for example, the components to electric vehicles and the components to solar panels. My desk is the newest, it's 3 years old, but our team pre-exists that in experience in environmental commodities. I've spent all of my professional career working in the EU ETS, helping companies in the stationary sector, so steel, cement, aviation, and the list continues, to comply with the EU ETS. And my colleagues also have a very long experience in this as well. Our main focus, however, is the shipping sector because of that correlation with our biofuels department. And we spend much of our time traveling across Europe and further abroad through Asia, North America, and of course in the Middle East to discuss how people start complying with this new regulation and combining that with biofuel options and Fuel EU options. So just to start from the very top, obviously, I hope some of you already know very much about the EU ETS already, but for those of you who do not, we will start with an introduction. The emissions trading system in Europe is the biggest policy in the European Union to reduce emissions. It started in 2005, and its goal is to reduce emissions by 62% by 2030. Before the shipping industry joined the EU ETS, there was already 11,000 installations in Europe participating in the scheme, from aviation through to the power sector. And now there will be 12,000 new ships added to the scheme this year for compliance in 2024. Now, the EU ETS is called a cap and trade system. This means that the EU every year sets the amount of emissions it would like to emit. And they give those allowances, called EUAs, out into the market for people to buy. They can buy them through 2 ways: an auction, designated by the European Union, or by free allocation, which is given directly to the operator. For you guys in the maritime sector, you are given nothing, unfortunately, by the European Union when you joined. And so the only way for you to procure allowances is through the auctions or through the secondary market, which is where we operate. So just a reminder that 1 ton of CO2 emitted is equivalent to 1 EUA. So how does this relate to you guys in the shipping industry, first and foremost? So to give an example, if you're traveling from Istanbul to Barcelona, 50% of those CO2 emissions from that voyage will count within the EU ETS as you're traveling to a European port. If you're traveling from Barcelona to Rotterdam, 100% of that voyage is included. However, it gets more complicated because the EU has given a phased-in approach to shipping companies. And this is known by all the verifiers, so maybe this is something that's ancillary to you, but good to notice, is that you're given 40% of those emissions you have to pay. 60% you do not have to pay this year. This rises to 70% next year, and then from then onwards, it's all of those emissions that take account. Currently, the EU ETS involves just ships over 5,000 deadweight tons, and it only includes carbon dioxide emissions. Now, as you can see by this chart in front of us, that will be expanded also by the European Union including ships of over 400 deadweight tons to be decided from 2027, which I know will include possibly a lot more of you than right now, and would also include different emission sources, so methane and nitrous oxides too. So the key thing to note here is that although it's starting right now, the EU ETS, the exposure to the EU ETS will increase considerably for shipping companies in the following years. One question we often get asked is who is responsible for paying the EU ETS? And this is really down to contractual agreements between the operator, the charterer, and the ship owner. This can be settled through a cash settlement. For example, the charterer will buy the EUAs and will be cash settled, or you can physically deliver the EUAs to the ship owner or the ISM company in control of that vessel. So to come to the most important part of any discussion, it's the price. So let me start with how it's developed over the course of the last years and into this year, and then we will discuss what's projected for the EUA price going forward. So actually, when I started in this industry, there was not a lot of talk about the ETS because the price was around 20 euros. It wasn't a big deal for a lot of companies. And then, of course, there was a huge rise due to the supply tightening by the European Union to reduce the supply of the allowances that they give. And also the inclusion of the maritime sector also helped increase the demand. Therefore, we now see the price currently around 70 to 75 euros. This year, we've seen the price fluctuate massively. We've seen it go from 60 euros in December up to 80 euros in February, down to 60 euros again with Trump's tariffs, and now we're up again to 75. I just want to highlight that because that's really important because the market is very volatile, day to day, week by week. And therefore, those with a larger compliance obligation, it is worth trying to hedge that volatility risk throughout the year so that you can achieve more of an average price, so that you are not at risk of buying at the point in which there's a high point. So this here is a really important slide. This table below explains through all of the major industry analysts from the latest set of data what they expect from the EUA price going forward into the future. As I said, right now we're around 73 euros. So that is very close to what the average will be for this year, according to the analysts' predictions. As you can see, though, going forward into the future, from 25, 26, 27, those prices will increase apparently by around 10 to 15 euros every year. And that's because simply it's not a free market like anything else. It's controlled by the European Union. The supply decreases every year. And the demand from the maritime sector especially, but also from investors, is increasing over that period too. So that is why we are looking to see further increases in the years to come. And therefore, again, if you have a larger exposure to the ETS, then it's important possibly to look not just at this compliance period now until September, but also to look further ahead to hedge your exposure. So I want to start by countering this EU ETS with where we should be now as a shipping industry. So this is the chart that explains the process of how you start procuring for this year coming. So we're at the stage now where companies should already have set up their MOHAR account in their jurisdiction given to them by the European Union. And also at this point, we should have verified emissions reports for those vessels traveling in European waters approved by the European Union as well. Now, if we're not at those points, there is a real need to urgently get to there as quick as possible because the deadline, of course, is in 3 months' time, and you would still need time to then procure the allowances. What is interesting to note is that 63% of people missed the deadline in shipping industry to verify their emissions. So if you are one of those people, you're not alone, but it's time in which to catch up to get to the point where we can start procuring allowances. So at this point, we're seeing a lot more interest from shipping companies in Turkey, but also outside, across the world, procuring allowances now ahead of the deadline. We see people try to take lots of different approaches, which I will come into in the next section. One question that we have always from companies across the world is, okay, Breton, but maybe we don't need to pay. Maybe the EU will delay the deadline. Maybe they won't give us a penalty. Maybe we can wait a bit longer. This historically is not true. The ETS has a really, really high compliance rate in the European Union. And the ETS also is quite quick with issuing penalties to companies that do not comply by 30th of September. The penalty is 100 euros plus the EU ETS price at that time. And they're required to surrender those EUAs as well. So if you are a vessel that does not do this for more than 2 consecutive periods, the EU ETS and the government can risk expulsion from trading within the EU. And if it's a company-wide decision, they can also give denial to entry into the EU for all of the ships. So it's, again, important that every shipping company follows this procedure, unfortunately. Otherwise, these penalties will be pushed onto you by the EU ETS. So now we come to the point where we've finished the MOHA process. We've got our verified emissions numbers. How can we help? We're a trader at heart. So what we do with clients is we sit with them and we develop a procurement strategy. Sometimes it can be very simple. If you have an obligation and you want to buy as close to the deadline as possible for your cash flow reasons, we can help you with that. We can help you try to get the best price possible at that point to give you the volume that you need to surrender. For those of you with a larger obligation, when I'm talking about a larger obligation, I'm talking anything between 5,000 to 50,000, 100,000 EUAs requirement. It's more important to start hedging now in tranches or opportunistically at good prices that you think are below the average EU ETS price that can guarantee you to be hedged against the market risk rather than buying everything at the end, potentially when there is more demand, of course, from other companies, and being left with a price that is higher than the average. So we can discuss with you what strategy works best for you and what we recommend based on our experience with other clients. And for those of you that are looking further ahead because of the price increases that are scheduled, we can also look at forward transactions too, which means that you can hedge the price now to pay for next year's compliance or the year after's compliance. And this is also a discussion we can have with you too. What really adds value from a trader's perspective is the market intelligence. So we have a team here at Targray that produces a weekly report about why the market has moved the certain way it has this week, what we expect for next week, and we can give you any ad hoc client feedback when you ask for it. Any questions about the market, we are happy to discuss with you over the phone or via email. We also give price alerts at certain levels and provide you with all the necessary information to buy at the right price for you ahead of the deadline. That's the EU ETS part done for now. We will return to that, of course, in the Q&A if you have any questions. But now I want to touch on the Fuel EU topic, which is emerging a lot more interest in Turkey at the moment due to its deadline in under 1 year's time in June next year. And we will discuss a little bit more about what the Fuel EU maritime legislation is, how it relates to the EU ETS, what the fine is, and how we can get past that as well. So the Fuel EU maritime legislation started on January the 1st of this year. Unlike the EU ETS, which looks at purely the carbon emissions, This rule looks at the GHG intensity of the fuel that you burn. And the target here is a 2% reduction in this year coming. That will rise, of course, throughout the years, but let's focus on the 2% for now. The penalty that you currently have for being above that GHG intensity limit is 2,400 euros, a very high penalty, per ton of VLSFO equivalent that you are over the limit. That translates in tons of CO2 to around 640 euros. So I wanted to structure it in the same way as the EU ETS. Where are we now? What should we be doing now to counter fuel EU? The first step is to monitor the fuel consumption and the fuel types that you are using for traveling in the European waters through your verifier and your validator. Next year, from January to March, you will then submit this report to your verifier and to the Fuel EU body, ETS MRV. And then in April, by April, you need to decide what decision you need to make. So as you see here in this graph, if you are under compliant and your carbon intensity is too high, you're burning MDO, MGO, HFO, which are all above the carbon intensity limit, then you have a few choices available to you. You can pay the penalty, the 2,400 euros. You can decide to burn biofuels in advance to make sure that you are compliant, or any other advanced fuels. Or you can choose to pool your vessels with other companies' vessels that are over compliant, which then balances out in total. And that is a much lower price currently than the penalty. So it's quite an attractive thing for a lot of companies to do currently. And this is where we can help. So as you can see by the graph at the bottom, oftentimes in this current stage of Fuel EU, one ship that burns LNG or bio LNG can be compliant for many, many under-compliant ships. Therefore, pooling becomes a very interesting option for companies. So the first thing that needs to happen for this pooling to work is for people to calculate a forecast of how much deficit they are in, how many tons of CO2 they need to buy to make sure that they comply, or how many tons of CO2 they have in surplus that potentially they can sell to create more revenue. Then at this point, we can help you. The current price for pooling in the Fuel EU is around 160 to 200 euros per ton. This is a 70% saving on paying the penalty. It's a no-brainer, quite frankly. If you can't use biofuels due to the technical retraining and the operational problems on board, you can instead choose to put your vessels into another vessel list with someone that's in a surplus. They would be able to create a revenue from that otherwise would not be there. And you will also be able to reduce the penalty that you pay as a result. So it's a win-win for both parties. And what we do is we connect those people together and we manage the pool to track the compliance and make sure that everything is balanced at the end of the year. That is as far as I can go on Fuel EU for now, but I'm sure, again, there's going to be questions from you guys in the comments. I will now turn it over to Hussein, who can ask some questions in the Q&A section. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brayton. Thank you for this detailed presentation. It's well noted. So now we are looking our participant if any questions. Evet arkadaşlar, bu konu hakkında soru sormak isteyen katılımcımız varsa bize yazabilirsiniz. Altta Q&A bölüm var. Q&A bölümü. Oraya yazabilirsiniz. Biz oradan takip edebiliyoruz. Şimdi şu an herhangi bir soru görmüyorum. Peki ben birkaç soru hazırladım. Müsaadenizle önce Onu sorayım. There is no question up to now, but I have a few questions for you. So I will ask you to these questions. EU ETS veya Fuel EU Maritime için ödeme yaptığımızda paralar nereye gidiyor diye bir soru sormak istiyorum şimdi. Britain, where does the money go when you pay for EU ETS or for Fuel EU Maritime?
It's a great question. I get this question all the time from companies in Turkey, of course, because you're not part of the EU ETS. So it's a very interesting one.
Yes,
Currently, the funds go into two ways. They go to the European Union for their countries to spend on energy-related purposes, so not to Turkey. However, there is an innovation fund where the money also goes to, whereby Turkish ship owners can apply for funds for decarbonization of their vessels and of their operations in their fleet list. So this is possible. It takes a lot of time, of course. It's the European Union, but there is a possibility to get some funds back through this mechanism only. Now, I've had some conversations with Turkey and the climate change department there, and there could be a possibility for the Turkish government to involve themselves in an EU ETS type scheme where they will be able to collect monies that can be spent on Turkish industry as well. But this is something further in the future and being discussed at the government level right now.
I see. Thank you very much. Also, I have another question for you. Firstly, I would like to say Turkish, then I will repeat in English. Doğrulanmış emisyon raporum bana satın almam gereken 1000.9 ya da 1000 olduğunu söylüyorsa biz hangisini satın almamız gerekiyor? Yani virgüllü bir rakamdan sonra üstünü mü altını mı satın almamız gerekir diye bir soru var aklımda. Onu soralım. If my verified emission reports tell me that I have 1000.9 EUA as to purchase, must I purchase 1000 or 1001 EUS, please?
Yes, it's a question that is also asked quite a lot. It creates quite some confusion for companies. So the short answer is 1000 EUAs. The EU ETS offers a policy where it rounds down the amount of emissions that you need. So if you have a point something, you can round down to the next number. So for this case, 1000 EUAs.
I see. So come down. I see. Okay. I have another question for you. Arkadaşlar, bu EU fiyatı bu yıl neden çok dalgalandı ve kısa vadede bu fiyatlardan ne bekleyebiliriz diye bir soru aklıma geliyor. Bunu soralım. Why has the UAE price fluctuated as a lot of this year, and what can we expect from the price in this short time?
Yes, the price of the EUAs fluctuated a lot this year, quite staggeringly, actually. The EUA price follows three main drivers this year, really, and that's geopolitical. So what's happening with tariffs, what's happening with the war in Ukraine and Russia, what's happening with the events in the Middle East also at the moment. So the rise to 80 euros was mainly predicated by the gas price in Europe. It's very much correlated with the gas price in the winter season normally. And this was because of supply tensions from Russia, mainly. That's why the price rose a lot. And the price then decreased after Trump's tariff announcements because of lower industrial demand, potentially, as a result of less business being traded across the Atlantic. And also with pressures between China and the United States. The price has recovered now because of increased investment fund interest and also more buoyant natural gas and energy prices in Europe as a result. So they follow those three main coordinators, and it can often change quite a lot during the day as well as a result. What do we expect for the short term? Sorry, just to answer on this. We expect the price to be around the same range. We're neutral to bullish in trading terms, meaning that we expect it to be around this price towards the upside for the short term.
I see. Thank you. I have one question from the participant. As per market stability reverse, market price of EUA should be in range of 70 euros until 2030. Afterwards, the EUA price will increase like rocket. What is your thought about that?
That's a very interesting point to raise about the Market Stability Reserve. We've just seen figures from the Market Stability Reserve, which has taken allowances out of the market again for this year. And we continue to see that happening at least for the next couple of years. What is happening in terms of the analysts' predictions is that the price will rise up to around 120 euros, as you could see in my slide, at 2030, and will rise considerably due to the reduced supply in the market. What may change that is, you're right, the Market Stability Reserve may push allowances back into the market if there is really a lack of supply, but we don't see that happening for the next few years, and we continue to see over the long term a bullish picture for EUAs, which is what's happened over the course of the last 5 years.
I see. Thank you. There is no more questions. So I continue with my questions. Şimdi arkadaşlar aklıma daha evvel başka bir soru gelmişti. Şimdi onu yöneltelim. Bu EU ETS'de blok edilmiş bir hesap alabilir misiniz? Alabilir miyiz? Ya da bu ne anlama geliyor diye bir soru soralım. Yes. Can you get a blocked account in the EU ETS, and what does it means?
Yes, you can get a blocked account. I will be surprised actually if some of you don't have a blocked account in the EU ETS already. A blocked account means that you have not submitted your verified emissions reports to the EU ETS on time in April of this year. So once you do submit your verified emission reports, that block will come away automatically. That's a good thing. What happens when you have a blocked account is that you can still receive EUAs from a trader or from another party, and you can still surrender EUAs to the European Union. What you can't do is to transfer the EUAs yourself until you've submitted those verified reports. So it's not a huge block, but it's something to take note of if you do have that situation right now.
All right, thank you. I got one question from the participant right now. She says, do you think the joint trading of UKE and EUA within the same market would have an impact on EUA price?
Yes, as I'm British, UKAs is also something I work on. It's the equivalent to the EUA in Europe. The UKA will have most likely a bullish effect on the market, so it will increase the price. And why do I say that? It's because the UK has a more advanced climate policy than the European Union, and therefore they're bringing more demand into the market as a result. So we would expect the joining of the UK into the EU ETS, which should happen in the next 3 or 4 years, to increase the price as a result. And also to include shipping companies that travel into UK waters as well.
I see. Thank you for answer. There is no more questions from the participant. So I have again a question for you. Arkadaşlar, gelen sorularınızı canlı canlı iletiyorum. Olmadığında da tabii ki benim hazırlamış olduğum, merak ettiğim konuları da ben de sizler gibi ders çalışarak bunları hazırlıyorum. Şöyle bir soru hazırlamıştım. Ee, Şu anda kendisi Tagray diye bir firmanın trader'ı. Şimdi Tagray gibi bir tüccar firma kullanmak yerine neden üyeleri kendimiz satın almıyoruz diye bir soru soralım. Yani niye bir aracı kurum kullanalım? Bunun bize olan faydası nedir diye soralım. Yes. Why can't I buy AUA myself instead of using a trader like yours?
Well, the truth is you can do it by yourself. But the problem with that is that it's a lot of expenditure to set yourselves up on the trading platforms if you don't already have them. So what we see in the stationary sector, those that have been in the market for 20 years, is those with large obligations, really large. We're talking over 100,000 EUAs every year. They tend to have their own access to the auctions, own access to the secondary market because it's cost effective. For those with smaller obligations, to have the subscription to sign on to the exchange, it's quite prohibitive for the fees that are charged on the secondary sector by a trader like ourselves. And what we also add more than anything is the marketing side. We have clients all across Europe in the shipping industry and outside, and we can leverage that experience and what they're doing to help you comply as well and develop a procurement strategy around that. And what's more, our trading cycle is very lean, so there's not a lot of paperwork involved, which is often the case, of course, so that you can sign and get ready to procure in a quick and easy fashion.
All right, thank you. I got one participant questions. I can ask you. Would you increase or decrease in industrial production in Europe, especially in Germany, have an impact on AUA price?
Absolutely. So historically speaking, the power sector in Germany and the industrial production in Germany is the largest mover of the EUA price as a fundamental indicator. If the Germans are using more coal or they're switching to gas and other forms of electricity, that ratio really affects the EUA price. So we would see if there's a decrease in industrial production in Germany, again, a decrease in the EUA price. Now, that relationship with the EU ETS price is somewhat being washed away by bigger factors now, which include the speculative interest by investment funds and also the geopolitical movements and energy prices, which we see are really affecting the price right now. But also, what's key to note is that by 2030, the aviation sector and the maritime sector will be bigger than the German industrial production. So you guys will have more of an influence on the market than Germany in the course of the next 5 years.
All right, thank you. Arkadaşlar, ben tabii sorularımı hem Türkçe hem İngilizce soruyorum. Sizler de mutlaka iyi anlıyorsunuz. Biz Britain'la daha evvel söyleşiler yaptık öncesinde. Kendisinin hem İngiliz olması hem de aksanın yurt dışında yaşadığından dolayı aksanını bize göre ayarlayabildiğini söyledi. Kendisini vermiş olduğu cevaplar gayet anlaşılabilir bir İngilizce ile bize bunları iletiyor. Ben de bunları dinledikten sonra e, en azından katılımcılarımızın çoğu İngilizceyi iyi anlayabildikleri için, en azından bu aksanı da anlayabildikleri için bunu Türkçe'ye çevirme gereğini duymuyorum. Sanırım herkes iyi anlıyor, değil mi? Bunu bir parantez içerisinde söylemek istedim. Bu arada herhangi bir soru şu anda yok. Ben yine hazırlamış olduğum sorulardan bir tanesini sorayım. Sorum, Fuel EU Maritime cezasını veya fazlasını ödemekten kim sorumlu olur diye bir sorun var. Bunu kendisine soralım. So, who is responsible to pay for the fuel EU maritime penalty or surplus?
Yeah, this is a great question as well. It's very similar to the question we have for the EU ETS on who would be responsible there. But generally speaking, it's the ISM company that will be responsible for compliance with the Fuel EU maritime regulation. In most cases, however, the ISM company does not control the fuel supply of the vessel, and therefore sometimes that is then passed onwards to the charterer. These contractual arrangements are very individual and they depend on what you've agreed in your contracts. But it's fair to say that maybe if someone's on a longer term charter for minimum of one compliance period, they will have those rights to pay or to have the pooling rights to get money from a surplus. Or if there's for a smaller time charter, then it's likely that the owner will remain in charge of the penalty and of the surplus in case that they're above the obligation.
Thank you. And I have one question from Anticipate. For Fuel EU, we would appreciate it if you could share future information on the pricing structure for the pooling arrangements and
Yeah.
especially the KYC process required for the pool we intend to participate in.
That's a great question. So let's take the first part first, the pricing structure. So the pricing structure in the Fuel EU largely consists, the standard way of doing things is to put a deposit down now. This is mainly for the fact that some companies with a surplus need to blend biofuel and therefore incur an additional price to cover this cost. And then in April, once the pool is formed and verified by one of the many verifiers, then the rest of that funds will be paid to the supplier, the surplus. And what is required from a KYC process is, again, a very individual case. But for us, what we intend to do at Targray is to work as your principal. So you will trade with us and we will trade onwards, making sure the KYC process is as limited as possible. The one thing that we would need to do with the surplus and the deficit is that come April, when you have to form your pool together, you must agree to be part of each other's pool and accept that together. And that will be stipulated in any contract that you sign for Fuel EU, that both the surplus and the deficit recognize that they will be part of the pool and it's forming part of that arrangement to reduce the risk associated with it.
Thank you. Good answer. Thank you. Okay, there is no more questions, but I have. Arkadaşlar sizlerden soru geldikçe alıyorum. Ama ben de konunun A'sından Z'sine her şeyini iyi anlıyorum diye ben de güzel çalıştım. Doğrusunu söylemek gerekirse. Şimdi bir başka soru sormak istiyorum kendisine. Fuel EU kapsamında bir havuz oluşturmak yerine neden biyoyakıtları bunlarla karıştırmıyoruz diye bir soru sormak istiyorum. So, why not blend biofuels instead of pooling under Fuel EU?
Yes, this is one of a couple of options, of course, apart from paying the penalty to deal with your deficit in Fuel EU. And so a really strong reason, quite frankly, is maybe you don't have access to biofuels. This is a way more straightforward way of doing it. It's an administration way of doing things rather than involving the technical adjustments to ships potentially, or the operational problems with potentially retraining some staff and being able to pull into to ports whereby you can bunker biofuels. So essentially, This is an ability whereby you can do things in the same business as usual manner through reducing your risk only by changing the administration of which vessel list you become a part of. So it's a lot simpler and also potentially more cost effective, actually. The price for the Fuel EU pooling right now is 160 to 200 euros, and that premium is potentially a lot less than what you'd have to pay as an increase to your current fuel for the use of drop-in biofuels.
Thank you. One participant questions right now. I have it. He says, do you have a local presence of structure in Turkey that would facilitate communication and coordination with you?
That's a great question. At this moment, we do not have an office in Turkey. However, myself and my colleagues, we are very often in Turkey. So we visit people on a very regular basis, potentially monthly, actually, that we come down to Istanbul and to Izmir and to other places in Turkey. So that is when we can facilitate an in-person meeting together. I'm available at any time to come to your beautiful country. It's always a pleasure, especially the meze, the beer, and the doner as well, of course.
All right, thank you. Also, they can, who need, they can reach us. Then we will find you and we will give his details and you can communicate each other without us. We will help you. Thank you. Başka soru var mı diye bakıyorum. Başka soru yok. There is no more question from the participant, but I have few more. Arkadaşlar şu anda başka soru görmüyorum ama benim iki sorum kaldı. Doğrusunu söylemek gerekirse çok da sıkılmanızı istemiyorum ama konu gerçekten önemli ve gerçekten Mr. Britton da bize gerçekten güzel ve adil cevaplar veriyor. Şimdi ona şöyle bir soru sormak istiyorum. Gelecek yıla kadar gerçek uyumluluk bakiyemi bilemeyeceğimden dolayı Fuel EU Maritime'a uyum sağlamak için şimdiden nasıl katılabilirim diye bir soru aklımdan geçiyor. Bunu ona soralım. So how can I participate now in complying for Fuel EU Maritime when I will not now know my actual compliance balance until next year?
It's a great question, and it's not an easy answer, actually. So only for companies really that have a long-term time charter or have established trading routes will have an understanding, a forecast for this year about how much over compliant or under compliant that they may be. It can be an accurate forecast only in those situations. Of course, those of you that are trading on a voyage spot basis or on short-term time charters, those forecasts are a lot more difficult to do. So we would recommend, if you're on the first part of that, where you have an idea of your forecasts, to start hedging now for the price, because actually a lot of people will be in the second boat looking to buy in Q1, so from January next year. Of course, that will increase the demand in that area, and therefore we would expect the price to increase as a result. Those of you that are on a voyage basis, though, and are on a short-term time charter, there is still chance to hedge. We can give you some options in terms of flexibility for the amount that you need, that you can then reconfirm with us once you have the actual numbers. And we can have discussions with that individually for each case as to how we can achieve this too. So for both of those types of vessel owners, we can find solutions so that we can get started at least now before everybody comes to the market in Q1 next year.
I see. All right. There is no more questions, and I think I have no more question anymore. And I would like you to ask you the last questions, if no more others. Arkadaşlar sizden herhalde daha başka soru şu ana kadar gelmedi. Ben son artık sorumu sorayım. kendisine ve neden kendisini seçmeliyiz diye bir soru sorayım. Bakayım kendisi nasıl bir cevap verecek. Mr. Britton, this is the last question of me. There is no more questions. We are wonder all together why we should we choose your company for this purchase. Lastly, you can inform us why we choose you. Thank you.
My pleasure, and thank you very much, Hussein Bey, for introducing me and speaking with us on this topic. It's really appreciated. So really, the EU ETS and purchasing through Target is quite an easy decision. As I've explained to you before, our structure, our trade cycle, meaning the amount of contract work that you have to do, the signing up and the KYC process, is very simple and very quick. That's number one. Number two is that outside, as I say, from doing it yourselves and picking a price, we have clients from across the world that are doing the same thing as what you do, the same issues that you have. And we have that bank of knowledge within our team that we can answer any questions operationally and also on the price side to help you buy at the best rate. And what's more, we can help you create a strategy where you can realize a price that is better for you than if you were to do it simply by yourself. That's the second value add that we can do. The third is that we're a trader. We take a margin, frankly, on the market volatility of that price and the payment terms that we have with you guys. What we like to do with our clients is we like to be able to deliver quickly and the payment to be quick and the response time to a quote to be quick as well. Everything is quick in this industry, and that's what makes sure that the price that you receive is the closest possible to market. And then we can realize a price that you can have that has less, no brokerage fees, no more commission, and something that you can have that's a more representative average price of the market. So I hope that gives you some food for thought. If you have any questions more on that, feel free to reach out to me.
All right. Thank you for detailed explanations, which is all noted. And we thank you for these presentations and your really open and detailed answers to us. Hope there is no more questions. So we would like to complete our webinar right now. If you want to say your last things to us, or we will complete it.
Just want to say thank you very much again to Hussein Bey, and thank you very much to Koster for introducing me to this webinar. And I hope to see as many of you as possible next time in Turkey. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will wait you. Welcome. Değerli katılımcılar, bizleri dinlediğiniz için hepinize çok teşekkür ederiz. Başka bir Koster Akademi'de farklı bir konuda görüşmek üzere. Bu söyleşinin tekrarını koster.org web adresimizden ve YouTube kanalımıza üye olarak bugünkünü ve diğer bütün arşivlerimizi izleyebilirsiniz. You can watch the relay of this interview on our website koster.org and by subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can enjoy watching today and our other archives. Thank you very much. Hoşça kalın. İyi günler.